And hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You're back with the Midwest Express. So today I want to discuss with you a little bit more about Draiver. Everybody's been asking me for an update video, so here it is. This is kind of A to Z, everything you need to know about driving for Draiver. And I wanted to put this together, but I wanted to have the time to actually do it and do it right. So here we go. So if you're going to drive for Draiver, first thing you need to realize is Draiver is part of the transportation industry. And when I talk about part of the transportation industry, when you work in the transportation or maritime industry or certain industries, you're expected to be a professional and to kind of know what you're doing. And when you get hired by Draiver, they are looking for people that are independent and able to carry out the mission and get the vehicles delivered and know what they're doing, how to drive a vehicle and how to navigate and not needing much hand holding. Okay. So I just want to explain this because a lot of the times where you pick up these trucks and these vehicles, they are commercial or industrial type businesses, and they are used to people that know and just kind of go. So if you're looking all doe-eyed and timid and don't really know what you're doing, it's understandable when you first start, but I just want you to know that they kind of have a little bit gruffer attitude sometimes when you're dealing with certain industries. And when you're dealing with the auto industry or transportation industry, they are kind of gruff. So I just want to put that out there. So if you're very timid, Draiver might not be an app for you. Okay, next, be prepared for a drive. If you're going to drive for Draiver, before or when you accept an order, you need to understand what kind of area you're in and what kind of market you're driving in. So if it's a long drive that you're going to take, I always tell people that make sure you have a to-go bag. A to-go bag is more or less just a backpack. You're going to want to put water in it because once you start your Draiver trip, you don't want to be stopping. You don't want to be stopping for anything. So first thing you do before you start your trip, you can accept it or whatever, but before you actually start, you want to use the bathroom. You want to make sure you have bottles of water to drink along the way. You want to make sure that you have a phone charger. Myself, I use two phones. Why? Because if you're using the navigation system and you're driving, quite often, the vehicles that you might be driving might not have a USB port to plug into. So I use one phone for the navigation so that the phone that I have the Draiver app running on, I don't run that out because that's an important one. And if you're talking like a 10-hour drive and no charger, you don't want to be in a tough situation that you run out of battery life. So you want your phone fully charged. You want to have a charger available if they have it, but you also want to have some type of backup for your battery. Just a piece of advice out there. Some food, some snacks. You're here to make money. You're not here to spend money. You're not going to want to take time to stop for meals and whatnot. Bringing something along that's not going to be messy, just to keep yourself, the hunger pains away, and to keep yourself motivated and going forward. I do recommend that if you're taking long drives, you bring an emergency clothing. Underwear and socks at the bare minimum. And a small change of light clothing for your underneath at least, so that if something happens and you don't get back right away, you're not getting into somebody else's vehicle or having to catch a plane ride or whatever and being rank. And on top of that, bring deodorant, bring toothpaste, and bring some body wipes or baby wipes or butt wipes, whatever you want to call them, but bring something along to keep yourself clean and be able to wipe your hands off and such. It just makes life easier for you. So that's just kind of the preparation mode of thinking about, all right, before I start a drive, make sure I have one of these to-go bags or a work bag or whatever you want to call it, right? Next, talking about, I had a subscriber ask about hearing that people get stranded. I can only tell you guys about my experiences and what I know, and I've never been stranded with Draiver. As a chase driver, if you're in the chase vehicle, you're not stranded because you got your vehicle. If they have a chase vehicle for the job, then you're not going to get stranded unless the chase vehicle breaks down or something happens along the way. But if you take a job that doesn't have a chase vehicle, and the itinerary will specify on modes of transportation and whatnot, but if you're going to take an Uber back, I was thinking about this, and the one thing that how I could see that possibly somebody gets stuck somewhere is that you are delivering a vehicle to a remote area or a very far distance. And I could see it be a challenge for them to find a driver to bring you all the way back. So let's say you do I'm in Wisconsin. Let's say I do an 8-hour trip all the way down to the middle of Indiana. And finding a driver that wants to drive from Indiana all the way back to Wisconsin could be very hard, So I think that could be a possibility. When I talk to you guys, I always talk about my experiences, but when it comes to guarantees, there's no guarantees. And like I was saying before, transportation industry, you are expected to be self-reliant in some ways. And when I say that, I used to work in the maritime industry out on ships, and often we would be overseas and I would go to catch a ship, and maybe I would fly all the way to another country and get there and the ship is gone. There was a change in the itinerary. Something happened. Ship's not there. There's no agent to come pick me up to take me to the ship. I have to go get a hotel room, call the main office, figure out transportation, figure out things, and kind of make stuff happen. And that's kind of the mentality you have to have when you do these type of gigs in the transportation industry, is you have to be prepared for the unexpected, because the unexpected, nothing is promised and things can happen to go wrong. And I recommend you have a credit card, some money in the bank if possible, to bail yourself out, to get yourself home if something bad was to happen. I don't foresee that happening. I haven't personally observed this, but I'm not going to say it couldn't happen, because if it's happened to somebody, and this is the gig universe, if I say this is an absolute, somebody will come out of the bushes and say absolutely not and prove me wrong. So all I can tell you is what I've experienced, and I haven't had any problems with transportation, but I could foresee that. I think you should be prepared for that at all times. So other questions that I received about Draiver before I even get to the trip and how to do one and a tutorial there is, I had some questions about, well, you say that if this is a really good gig for people that don't have a car, but if you don't have a car, how do you get to the gig? Because Draiver typically doesn't pay to transport you from your house to where the gig starts. It's where the gig starts to return back to where the gig starts. That's the transportation that they're paying for. So if you live far away from where the gigs are starting, then Draiver is probably not a good avenue for you either, if you don't have any ways to get there. If you don't have a friend that can drop you off or a means. I picked up people that take buses from inner city Chicago out to the suburbs to start work and to do Draiver. So it's all on you. You have to weigh out, the profit margins and what's worth your time and your efforts and whatnot. And Draiver is not a huge moneymaker, but it is another avenue to make money. And that's what I want to point out to you guys. It's not for everyone. You have to see if it works for you. What works for me and what works for someone else might not work for someone else. So I just want to lay that out there. So today I was scheduled to do Grubhub from, I think it was 9:30 to 11. And then this afternoon, I'm doing a food delivery again from 2:30 in the afternoon till 8 o'clock tonight. So that was kind of my schedule. I knew I had a window open, and I got this Draiver ride that popped up. And I was like, here we are. This is a good chance to do a quick tutorial and kind of explain to you guys a little bit about it. So on this ride, it was 86 miles. The total trip, round trip, was 1 hour and 50 minutes. And actually, I think I got it done in like 1 hour and 35. Okay. Draiver themselves charged this company $44, and I ended up making $35.20. So they took $8 fee for Draiver for giving me the job. That was Draiver's cut of that fee. Now, whether they got paid more, I don't know, because the Uber cost to send me back was in there as well. So I don't know how that shakes out for Draiver. I just know that that fee got charged to me. So got this job, this itinerary. It is, and when you get the job, it'll say where it starts, where you drop it off, and then to return back. They will specify, is there other drivers? Is there a chase vehicle? Are you the chase vehicle? Are you an independent driver? On this drive itself, it was, I drive the vehicle up, Uber brings me back. Rideshare brings me back. So I was like, okay, all right, let's do it. Took the ride. Also, they'll have notes on there if there's any additional notes on this delivery. Now, with this ride, the manager actually called me. The shop was closed. They had the vehicle parked out front with the keys in the vehicle, and they called me and said, hey, you're going to follow through with this job, right? Because it's weekend, we're closed. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I go, I can't start till 11 because I was doing another gig, but I said, I'll be there and I'll be ready to go. They were like, okay, because they posted the job to start at 11:30. They asked me if I could go earlier. I said, yes, I'll go earlier, no problem. So, and it was good that they contacted me too, because now I had a phone number for the manager to call at the shop there. So they will go through the delivery information with you, kind of walk you through prior to taking the arrival. And then they also do this cancellation notification. And at any time before you start the gig, you can cancel the gig. But Draiver does put this caveat on there that says, hey, if it's close to start time, this will be considered a no-show for you, and you could be deactivated from the app for no-showing. So it's important that don't take any ride that you don't really want. When you get offered the jobs, don't just click on them right away, worried that they're going to disappear. Review the job, make sure it's what you want, and then accept it, okay? Because you don't want to cancel. It doesn't look good for you with your statistics with Draiver, and they don't give you like a running stat like that, but you don't want any negative marks. So just to fill you in there. So I arrived on point. It was a van that I was delivering, a tall, I think 18, 20 foot tall van, but they go through the steps. As soon as you arrive in the app, you'll click I've arrived. As soon as you start the trip, you'll say start trip. And then once you get there, you say I've arrived. And then they'll say, okay, go ahead and enter the VIN information. And you'll take a picture of the VIN up in the front window, vehicle identification number. You'll take a picture of the VIN. Now, it might not register. If it doesn't register, just write down the VIN number somewhere or take a picture of it. I use two phones, so I take a picture with one phone and then I just manually input it. It takes like 30 seconds to do. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but I've noticed that it doesn't register the VINs very clearly, be it that you're shooting through the window or whatever. I don't know why, but in the app, you can manually put it in. So not a big deal. Then they're going to say, take a picture of the license plate. And then you have to take a picture of all four sides of the vehicle. When you're taking pictures of the sides of the vehicle, they're going to ask you to annotate if there's any damage on any part of the vehicle as you're going around. And you want to check and make sure. Now, this was a delivery vehicle. This is a rental van. So there's a good chance there might be dings or whatever. So you want to make sure that if there's any dings or scratches or anything that you annotate it. But this vehicle had like 94,000 miles on it. So it had already been driven quite a lot. After you take pictures and annotate if there's any damage on all four sides of the vehicle, then you'll take pictures of the interior, the seats. For this, it was just the front because the back was all cargo. And then the dash area, make sure that if there's anything cracked or damaged on the dash, you're taking pictures of any kind of damage or anything you see there. And then you're annotating the odometer. Then it's also going to ask you, give me the vehicle height of the vehicle. So you'll put in the height information, then you'll put in the odometer information. The reason why the height is it's good that they make you put that height in because it makes you think, how tall is this vehicle? And will it clear a bridge if I end up going into a garage or a bridge or something along those lines? You need to remember how tall the vehicle is, because you're used to being in your own car all the time. And if you're driving something that's 14, 16, 18 feet tall, it's super important to remember that. So then in the app, they're going to ask you add any additional notes that you want to put down. And then you're going to go through and you're going to type in the person that's turning over the vehicle to you. So the person that's giving you the keys or whatever for the vehicle, you're going to put in their name and information, and then they're going to sign. If there's no person, like today, the shop was closed, I just put my own name and my own signature. I picked it up myself. And in the notes, I annotated shop was closed, keys were left for me to pick up, no vehicle turnover was conducted. That was done. Then we get to the delivery. And when you get to the actual driving to the destination, you're going to and again, this comes back to making sure you got a full charge on your battery, because you're going to use navigation to get there. If you're driving 10 hours and your battery's halfway dead, you could have a problem if there's no charger in this vehicle. So it's super important that you always have your phone fully charged before you start. And if you have two phones, it's even better, because you could put one on battery save mode and still run the navigation system. So just things to think about if you're taking a long trip. You can always turn on that battery saver. It's a lifesaver sometimes. It'll lengthen the time and turn off other apps or notifications while you're driving. Then you go ahead and conduct the ride. And when you're conducting the ride, it's super important that you guys remember that this isn't your own vehicle. You know, you need to drive cautiously, carefully, have your navigation, everything set up as you're going. I have a little tripod that I use that has flexible arms that I like to use, that I could set up for navigation, because there's, like on my car here, I have my phones all set into a nice little holder. I get into these vehicles, there's no holder, there's no nothing, and you don't want to be looking down at your phone. So I like this little tripod. I can set it up in the window, hang it on the rear view dash. I could set it somewhere, anywhere, it clips on. So I could clip it anywhere around in the vehicle for navigation. So I'm sure that I'm going the right way and don't miss a turn and whatnot. Also, it's important to remember you're not driving your own vehicle. This vehicle is now 14, 16 feet tall. When it's windy, you might have gusts of wind. You have to just get your feel and vibe for the vehicle. Make sure that first thing when you get into the vehicle, you're checking the mirrors, making sure everything's adjusted before you take off, actually, because you want to make sure that you're not monkeying with your phone. You're not doing anything. And you want to get going, but you don't want to waste too much time monkeying with stuff and trying to drive. You don't want to be adjusting the mirrors running down the highway or doing all that kind of stuff. So you conduct a drive. It took me like the 45 minutes or 50 minutes to drive up there. Once I got there, it ended up being a drop-off at a Home Depot center. So I had to go into customer service, turn over the keys at the customer service office, had to get the representative there's name and whatnot. And when you drop off the vehicle, it's the same thing as when you picked up the vehicle. The only thing is you don't have to take the picture of the VIN and you don't have to take the picture of the license plate again. But before you turn the vehicle in or the keys in, you got to take pictures of all four sides of the vehicle again, annotate if there's any damage or any issues. Then you have to take pictures of the seats and the dash again and the odometer. You have to write down the odometer mileage, and then you are pretty much done with that aspect. And then at that time, the app is going to prompt you to say, hey, do you need an Uber ride? So you can order your Uber rideshare, and they'll say verify your pickup point, because let's say, like today, I was at a Home Depot. If I don't want to get picked up at the Home Depot and I want to walk across to the Mickey D's to get a burger or whatever, I could go do that. You could adjust where the pin location is for your pickup in the proximity of where you're dropping it off. So you don't have to stand out in the cold waiting for a pickup. And also, this will link to your Uber account as well. So if you have the Uber passenger app on your phone, you'll be able to see the vehicle coming and whatnot. If you don't have it, you don't have to have it on your phone. It doesn't have to be linked. It'll be within the Draiver app, and Draiver will order the ride for you, and it'll give you notifications, and they'll say what plate and everything. but I noticed that it was also running in the background on my Uber app. I opened the Uber app and I actually saw him tracking along, and I was able to text him and say, hey, I'm actually at this door here. You can pick me up over here. I'm waiting for you. So it just helps out with that. So then Uber took me right back, dropped me back off at my vehicle. It took me an hour and 45 minutes, maybe an hour and 40 to do the whole thing. Really easy, real simple. I made $35. I worked on the way up there, technically. I drove a vehicle, $35, and I pretty much rode back and shot the bull with my Uber driver, who was very interested, and I was getting information about his market where he was driving at, and we just compared notes and talked about things on the way back. And he does all the gig apps as well, Walmart, Spark, everything else. So I was turning him on to the channel and just a whole bunch of information there. So really nice and cool meeting him. So the only thing, this was a happy ride today, but the only thing that kind of gets me is the driver for Uber kind of gets screwed. And this is how it can happen. And I think that if you're an Uber driver and you're picking up Draiver rides, you probably shouldn't anticipate any kind of tip. Because here was the thing. I invested almost 2 hours of time for $35. An hour and 45 minutes. So approximately $20 an hour I'm making driving, right, for the round trip. If you count just the time I drove there, it was 30 something dollars an hour, right? But I wasn't getting paid for the ride back, more or less. Technically I was, but I wasn't, right? I was just sitting in the back seat bullshitting. But the thing is, Draiver isn't going to tip that Uber driver. And if I'm making only $35 in 2 hours, am I going to tip an Uber driver? I did. But you might not. And if I was an Uber driver, I probably wouldn't even blame you if you didn't. If I know you only made $35, I asked the Uber driver how much he made. He made $46 from Uber. So he got paid more. He got paid $46 to drive me the same distance that I got paid $35 to do. But I did not use any gas. I didn't have to have a vehicle. I didn't have to have insurance. Everything was covered by Draiver. So that's that. Another comment made by another subscriber was like, hey, if you're the chase vehicle, you have to have insurance of $1 million to drive Draiver. I don't think the coverage is that much. I believe it varies state to state. I submitted my insurance that I have already on my vehicle to Draiver, and it was satisfactory. So to be a chase vehicle. So that's something you could look into a little bit more. I am not the ever-flowing, all-knowing river of knowledge about everything Draiver. I'm just sharing the information that I learned along the way so you guys could be a little bit more educated and take advantage of some of the apps out here. So I hope this was helpful. If you guys have more questions about Draiver, please leave them below. I don't ask for much of you guys. If you could like and subscribe, if you're liking the information that I'm sharing with you, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll hit you on the next one.